So you take all the big areas that we spend money on: housing, transportation, food, household, lifestyle, and financial. Each of these 6 categories, there's 10 recipes. So 10 ways of saving significantly within the realm of housing, within the realm of transportation, food, etc.
Welcome to the My Future Business Show, where we get you in front of your best audience and keep you there. Not only are we interviewing the biggest names in business to help you become even more successful, we're inviting you to book your spot on the show to help you grow your business. So at the end of the call, make sure you fill in the interview application form at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. Hello, and welcome to the show. This is the show that gets you in front of your best audience and keeps you there. It's wonderful to have you with us. Now, if this is your first time joining us on the show, welcome. I know you are in for a treat because today we're on the line with the wonderful Gordon Stein. Welcome to the show, Gordon.
Hey, Rick, great to be here. Thank you so much.
It's absolutely a pleasure to have you here. Now, you are an international speaker, you're a blogger and an author of the wonderful book you have in the background there called the Cashflow Cookbook. And you and I are going to be talking about your approach for ending money worries, building wealth, and preparing yourself for the costs associated with housing, education, and retirement. Now, there's a lot to unpack there in such a short amount of time. But first of all, it's customary for us to learn a little bit about where you are. I know that you're outside right now, so we just spoke briefly about that, but where are you?
Yeah, I'm actually at the cottage on Pelee Island in Ontario, Canada. So it's the southernmost point of Canada.
So what's happening with the weather over there at the moment? Is it coming into winter or exiting winter?
No, it's still fall and
Yeah.
getting a little colder. We don't have the leaves changing just yet, but pretty soon, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I know that you've been working in the background to, change people's lives and improve their financial wealth. And you've been working on the Cashflow Cookbook, which we spoke about some time back. And I'm very excited to talk about that today. But again, before we do that, what is beautiful about the place that you live in? What do you love the most?
Here on Pelee Island, it's terrific. It's a small island. It's about 5 by 9 miles, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It's the southernmost point of Canada. It's in Lake Erie, largest island in Lake Erie of the Great Lakes, and it's quiet. It's gorgeous, beautiful.
Yeah, sometimes quiet, you can't replace it, can you? Do you find having some quiet time just to reflect is important for you?
It's absolutely terrific. Yeah, you're kayaking and bicycling around the island. It's gorgeous here. Really terrific.
Yeah. And in the background, you've also got some canoes. Do you like canoeing and getting on the lake and doing any sort of water sports as such?
Yeah, those are kayaks. So I kayak both in my home city of Cleveland, Ohio. We've got all kinds of rivers there, which is terrific. And we've got kayaks up here at the cottage as well. So it's just a terrific way to get out and pack a lunch and do some kayaking and join up with some friends.
Yeah, well, look, at the end of the day, the work that you're doing allows people more freedom to do that. Now, I think that's very important because oftentimes we get so caught up in the daily grind and we think making money is absolutely just the be all and end all. Would you say that there's more to life than just money?
I think there is. And I think, so many people, they spend their lives and they're grinding it out, often in many cases in a job they really don't enjoy. And they're doing that to earn a paycheck, to grind it out for the next day. And if they can get some financial freedom, it lets them elevate themselves, perhaps up to their higher purpose, to a kind of work they like more.
Yep.
Maybe they could leave a corporate job and join a family business or make their hobby their business. Lots of opportunities for people.
Tell me a little bit about growing up, Gordon, because I know that when I was growing up, finance and talking about money at an early age really wasn't on the I guess the radar. Did you ever have any exposure to that sort of when you were growing up? Were there any mentors in your life that taught you about money?
Not in the early days, but later on I did. One of my hobbies is racing on sailboats, and that put me in contact with a lot of people who've done very well financially. So I'd be crewing on the boats and getting a lot of great free advice from the boat owners. So it was kind of a combination of things. Terrific.
Yeah. So do you now still have mentors? Do you find that there's value in having those sorts of people around? And would that be something you'd suggest?
Well, now I often learn more from my audience on my blog, and when I do speaking engagements, I listen to people's questions. So now I'm more interested in learning about, what are people experiencing? What's their reality, and how do we improve that? How do we improve their lives? How do we reduce their stress around money?
Tell us a little bit about your speaking engagements, because I've looked on your site. You've got obviously the wealth advisor, client speaker, financial wellness speaker, and a whole host of other things that you talk about. Tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about that side of your experience.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I speak to all kinds of different audiences. The two biggest ones, one would be in the corporate world, both virtual and live, talking about wellness, financial wellness. And if you think about in the US, as an example, the wellness industry is an $8 billion industry.
Wow.
And much of that is spent on things like diet and exercise. And a lot of the focus is on reducing stress, meditation and yoga and all these things, which are great. But why don't we go and solve people's number one stress, which is their financial stress, the money? So that's why I like speaking about financial wellness. And it's often left off by human resources teams that are putting together these kinds of programs. We've got to help people with that stress for sure. So one big area of speaking is financial wellness in the corporate kind of setting, helping employees with their number one stress. And the second type of speaking I do a lot of is speaking with the clients of wealth advisors. And that one's quite interesting because when I speak with those clients, I can show them how to free up more cash flow. If they free up more cash flow, they're able to contribute more to their wealth advisor, accelerate their wealth, and of course, grow the business of the wealth advisor. So it's very synergistic, no incremental risk, and it's a terrific win-win. So I enjoy doing those a lot.
So do you work with people who are, I guess, at an early stage that don't necessarily have any financial literacy? Do you take them really right back down to the basics? Is that where you start with a lot of people?
Well, I mean, that's ideal. And most people get no kind of training on financial wellness or financial literacy in school, certainly not in high school, very little in college or university. And very often people's parents, they too don't know much about finances. So you get this issue where people really have no opportunity. So in a perfect world, they get some help and get some learning and training on personal finance early in their careers where it can make the biggest difference. But for me, you know, I'm often speaking, as I said, with clients of wealth advisors. So whatever that group may be, they may be from 30 years old to 70. And employees could be, of course, pretty much any age as well. But at every age and stage is an opportunity to improve financial wellness, to reduce stress, and to get to a much better outcome.
Yeah, fantastic feedback. Thank you so very much for sharing. Now, tell me a little bit about, before we shift gears and talk about your wonderful book, tell me about the flavor that people will find on your blog. What do you generally post about?
The blog posts, they tend to wane off a little bit when I'm putting out a new edition of the book. There's about 50 or 60 up there right now. And often they're musings. They're typically different content than what's in the book. Sometimes they're about one-time savings ideas and the things that people often don't think about. So as an example, I had an experience where I got a prescription for a prescription drug that I needed. It's something I need to take monthly for the rest of my life. And so I went to get it filled, and the cost was $107 a month, which isn't a massive amount of money, but that's forever.
That's enough.
So,
Yeah.
you know, that's significant. So it turns out they offered me a prescription drug card, which would slash about $44 a month off the cost of the prescription. I said, well, how much is the card? So the card was only $20 a year. So just by asking, I saved $500 a year on this prescription. Then I was speaking with my brother-in-law, and he mentioned an online pharmacy in the US, and the pills were $13 a month. So $107 a month. Prescription drug card brings us down to $63. Then this online pharmacy brings it down to $13.50. So I did a little more searching. So I now get the pills delivered to my house for $7 a month.
Wow.
So I did a blog post entitled How I Saved 94% of My Prescription Drugs. And these kinds of opportunities are out there all over the place for people. They just don't know how to take advantage of them. And that's the whole focus of Cashflow Cookbook, doing things smarter, not giving anything up, but how do you lower the cost of all these kinds of expenses? Every monthly expense we have can be significantly lowered, and use that cash for something meaningful, pay down some debt or increase investment. That's the idea.
Yeah, fantastic. You know, a lot of us really enjoy entertainment, and because times are, tough a little bit at the moment, I would suggest it's hard to find that extra bit of cash to go out and maybe watch a movie and those types of things. So instead of
Right.
frivolously spending, is there sort of a mindset that people should be adopting that would help them sort of, I guess, put some aside for those treats?
Well, I think it's a two-part thing. I think, Rick, you're raising a really good point. I think the first place to start, which I lay out explicitly all through Cashflow Cookbook,
Mm.
exactly how to lower car insurance, house insurance, life insurance, cell phone bills, you name it, electricity, natural gas for the home. Every single one of these bills can be lowered dramatically. And I think that's a great place to start because you don't give anything up. Minimal
Yes.
effort, minimal sacrifice. And Cashflow Cookbook includes all of these recipes, step by step, how to lower each and every one of these bills. So that's the place for people to start. And then the next thing I like them to do is to start focusing on their wealth. How much wealth do they have? Take everything that you own, subtract everything that you owe, and how much are you left with? So if you start tracking that and you start using these cash flow cookbook recipes, now you start freeing up more cash. So now you can pay down debt more quickly, you can increase investments more quickly. And so your whole financial freedom starts to come into focus. So I would start there. Once you get that in mind, you start to see those differences, you start to feel the financial freedom coming in, you're unshackled from those bills, then you can get a little bit creative on the fun things because there's ways to lower all of those costs as well. But the whole premise is don't give up what you love. Enjoy your life. Live for today. Just do it a whole lot smarter. And that's the idea of the
Yes.
book.
There's some sage advice here. I want to go back through your journey as an author. Did you ever think you were going to be an author? Was it naturally within you to write, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I love writing. I love speaking. I love any kind of communicating. I love listening. Um, and so I did one years and years ago for students, which was a student success guide that I wrote and had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I wanted to write another one. And then I stumbled into this whole idea of cash flow cookbook with a savings idea that I, literally found probably 5, 6 years ago. And then I was living in Canada at the time. And that led to the Canadian edition.
Mhm.
And more recently, I moved to the US. So I developed the US edition.
So tell me, where did I guess the idea of for the name come from? I absolutely love it because I look on your website and you've obviously got utensils, you've got ingredients. So I just love the play that you've done here.
Yeah. Yeah. Terrific. What was your question? Where did the idea
No,
start?
where did you get the idea for it to call it the Cashflow Cookbook?
Oh, okay. Well, I started stumbling into one or two of these ideas, these recipes that are in the book.
Yep.
And so I thought this is really quite interesting. And then I got into the idea of how much would this amount to? You took these monthly savings on each of these ideas and you invested it at 7% over time.
Yep.
And the amounts were remarkable. So, I took it to my accountant. He checked the math. He said, this would make a great book. And then I thought, geez, that would be an interesting book to help people out. So I had an idea of writing it as a novel. And I had my characters, I had my plot line. They were going to have setbacks, so then they discover things. And I sat down to write it, and I blocked off some time. I was all alone up at the cottage, and I was all set to write it. It just didn't work. It didn't
Didn't
fit.
happen.
What's that?
It just didn't happen that way.
But it didn't fit as a novel. It didn't work as a novel. There was too many numbers, and there were sort of all of these discrete ideas more than a story.
Hmm.
And so I was really frustrated. I spent 2 days trying to craft it into a novel. And under my breath one day, I said, it's just more like a cookbook. And I went, oh.
Ah,
And then I
there it
said,
is.
it's the Cashflow Cookbook. And I love alliteration. And there we go. That was the Cashflow
I
Cookbook.
love it. Thank you so very much. I'm loving the journey that you're taking us through. I often
Yeah.
think about, proving before verifying and validating that ideas, will actually work. Did you have to go through much of that? Did you use other people's experiences? Were there case studies? Tell us a little bit about that side of the process.
Yeah, it was interesting. I came up with the first idea as where it started, which was a way to get car washes for free legally. And that's what started. It was a way of saving $25 a month. And of course, who cares, $25 a month? But it got me thinking. And then I found a way to get discounted home alarm monitoring. And I thought there was another $25 a month. So then I started making a list, and the ideas came from friends and family. A lot of them came from readers of my blog at Cashflow Cookbook. Um, and a lot came from online research, and some came from personal experience. And
Yep.
so I kept curating these ideas, and but I set really tight parameters around them. Rick, I said they have to save at least $25 a month. Most of them save $200, $300, $400 a month. They go up pretty dramatically, but I set a floor of $25. But here's the key thing: is I said I only want ideas where it's as easy or easier than the way people do things today. So in the book, there's nothing about, making your own cleaning supplies. You don't have to drive to 5 grocery stores to get a good deal on celery. There's, no coupon clipping. These are things that you and I would do. It's just ways of getting smarter and buying smarter on all of these areas, but there's no extra hassle with it. And this is why it's this remarkable win-win for people.
Yeah, thank you again for sharing, Gordon. Loving the call. Now, we touched on earlier education, and I guess the missing link in the education system. Do you think that this book would be good for, kids? I've got 10-year-olds and the likes in my family, and they're going through those questioning stages, trying to work out money and what's it all mean. Would it be a good book for them to maybe pick up, have a read?
Yeah, I think, well, the book's been used in that kind of a context. And where it can be great, I think, for young people, the age that you're talking about is, often what we're dealing with is household bills. And very often, kids, let's say in the age of 10 to 17, they have no experience until they eventually get a place of their own one day. And that may be much later on. And they
Yeah.
have no idea how to comparison shop, how to do things smarter, how to buy better. So using the book as a family project is a great idea. And I've seen that done quite a bit, where as a family, you go through the recipes in the book and say, okay, let's start with our home consumption of natural gas or electricity. Let's go comparison shopping for car insurance, home insurance, life insurance, any of these kinds of things.
Yep.
And there's always a much, much better, much easier way to do it. So it's an interesting project as a family, because then people get involved. They start to appreciate the value of money. And maybe some of those savings go to a nice family dinner out each month.
Yes, lovely.
Or some of it goes to a trip or, camping or whatever it may be. But a lot of it maybe goes back into investing, and get kids exposed. Let them see, hey, we freed up a total of $700 a month. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take $200 a month for fun, take $500 a month and pay our mortgage down faster. Or we're going to increase our investment, or we're going to put it toward a college fund or university fund for the children. So now they're really starting to see how money works. It's a really great opportunity there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, a lot of people are at different stages of their financial well-being, let's call it. What happens if you meet somebody in a position of financial stress? Is it a good book for meeting somebody in that sort of stage of their life, and will it help them?
It absolutely will. I mean, sometimes we'll have a situation where somebody has a negative wealth. In other words, they owe more than they own, and that
Yep.
can happen. Sometimes people say, well, that's great, but it's not going to work for me because I'm riddled with debt. In fact, it actually works better for those people, because if you can start to free up cash flow from some of these regular bills and more aggressively use that to pay down a debt burden, then you get to a tipping point where that debt starts to drop even more dramatically, and they can start to see their wealth might still be negative for a while, but they can see it moving in a positive direction. And that starts to feel really great. And just getting to the point where you don't owe anything is remarkable for a lot of people. Then they've got an opportunity to start to build from there. So I think it really benefits everybody.
We know the power of cash flow as in itself, but what about compound and compound interest as it applies to creating financial wealth? Does it talk about anything like that in the book?
That's very core to the book. So let me give you an example. Let's say you do something that frees up $100 a month. Perhaps you reshop your car insurance. Perhaps you make some changes, improve your credit rating. Could be any of the 60 different recipes that are in the book. So you free up, let's just take a number of just $100 a month. Well, the way that works is if you can invest that money at 7%, how much difference would it make? So the answer is, after 10 years of this $100 a month, you're going to invest it at 7%. After 10 years, you'd have $17,300.
Adds up, doesn't it?
It does. And after, here's where it gets interesting. After 20 years, you'd have $52,100. So now you're starting to get to a fairly material amount of money. If you go to over 30 years, you're going to have $122,600. So that's an interesting number. Now, I'll tell you why that number is interesting. The average North American, Canadian or American, retires with about $200,000 of wealth. So if we can reshop one thing and save, let's say, $200 a month, they're going to retire with about $250,000 more after 30 years than if they didn't. In other words, they would double the average wealth of their peers on average by making a simple change of freeing up $200 a month and putting it to good effect. So that's the power of the book. So the whole book is all about compounding, because each recipe that we provide, I talk about a light serving of the recipe, and that might be a young person with an apartment. We talk about a hearty serving. So a hearty serving might be somebody, you know, a family. They've got 3 kids and 5 cell phones and a cottage and everything else. So those numbers are much, much bigger. So there's a couple of worked examples, and there's room for the reader to do their own worked example.
Yeah,
so
great feedback.
That's really the idea. And they can see it growing over time. What's it worth after 10, 20, or 30 years?
Is there a point in time, Gordon, where, you know, we've got this nice pot of cash, and we've, you know, fiat cash, and we've maybe got it in a bank, and we've got some under the bed or whatever we're doing with it? Is there ever a point in time where you would take that lump of cash and actually invest in other things? Does it talk about investments at all?
The book doesn't really get, there's probably another book to do about that for sure. But
yes.
I don't specifically get into, you know, what to do with the money. Where do you invest
right.
it?
Yep.
But I do recommend for people that they work with a wealth advisor, for the simple reason that all the research tells us that the people who work with a wealth advisor end up doing better than the people who don't work with a wealth advisor. And a big part of that is psychology. You know, the market drops, as it did at the start of COVID, by 30%. Now, you've managed to scrape up, let's say, $1 million, and the market just dropped, and now you only have $700,000. It's taking you, you know, most of your life to accumulate this money. Yep. What do you do? And the answer for a lot of us is we panic, and we want to sell some, all, or, you know, because what if it keeps going? We're terrified. And a wealth advisor would say, okay, this is fine. You know, what we're actually going to do is we're going to keep buying in through this dip. And if you would have done that through the worst of the panic of COVID, just as one example, or 9/11, or any of the wars that we've been through, or the government changes, or any of the things that give us all heartache, we would have been just fine. In fact, if I use the US market as an example, since its inception, it's returned more than 9%. And most people don't get anything like that because they're pulling the money in and they're out. They're trying to time the market. They're getting a tip from their Uber driver. You just keep investing in high quality securities, stocks and bonds over the long haul, and that'll definitely build their wealth.
Yeah, absolutely. Great feedback. Thank you very much. I can see how this book would help people stop living paycheck to paycheck. You would give them some sort of a roadmap, a plan. Now, when I think about roadmaps and plans, I'm thinking I'm not great at developing plans and roadmaps. Does this book sort of outline a bit of a roadmap approach to it? How will somebody get the most out of this book? Read it cover to cover? Or?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the book is really divided into 2 parts. And there's a US edition out now, which is available on Amazon. And there's a brand new Canadian edition, which is going to be coming out very shortly. It's going to have the silver cover that you see above me there. And the US one has the gold cover. And that'll be out the end of September. And so in these new editions of the book is broken into 2 parts. So the first part of the book, which is about the first 40 pages or so, we look over the shoulder of this couple. I call them Eric and Keisha. And they make a series of financial discoveries. And the really ideas that they have of ways of freeing up cash and saving money. And they start discovering these things, then they keep stacking more and more of these ideas. And what happens is they go from saving about 2% of their gross income, which will let you retire never. But then they use all of these ideas, and you actually we're peeking in on their conversations about these ideas that they come up with to free up more and more money, but they still have a great lifestyle. And you can see they don't sacrifice anything. But what happens is rather than retiring at 65 with next to nothing, they're going to add an extra $1.5 million to their retirement,
Wow.
which is really quite remarkable. So we gave it to focus groups and test readers, and they all had the same comment. They all said, "But that's so easy." And I said, "Yes, that's the whole
Yes.
point of the book." So we peek over the shoulder, we watch all of these savings, and then it breaks into a bit of a Q&A of the typical questions people have about the ideas in Cashflow Cookbook. Then we kick the reader over to part 2. So the first part is called the banquet, because we're looking at the whole thing. And then the second part is called the recipes. And in the recipes, now we get more specific. So you take all the big areas that we spend money on: housing, transportation, food, household, lifestyle, and financial. So we've got 6 categories. And it's a bit like a recipe book where you might have poultry and fish and desserts and whatever. So we've got these 6 categories. Each of these 6 categories, there's 10 recipes. So 10 ways of saving significantly within the realm of housing, within the realm of transportation, food, etc. So there's a total of 60 of them. And each one of them has these worked examples that we mentioned earlier: the light serving, the hearty serving. And then there's a spot for the reader to fill in his own findings. So people may say, "Hey, that's not realistic. I can't save that much." Or people may say, "This recipe doesn't work for me at all." Or they may say, "Oh, wow, I love it. I actually saved more than the example in the book." So the idea is you fill in your numbers, very simple. The math's all there for you. And you see how much you can free up. And then maybe you want to splurge a bit on some of those freed up savings. Maybe you want to give it to your wealth advisor, pay debt. That's up to you. Then you can go in and find all the ones. I would say typically people will find about 6 or 7 recipes where they say, "Wow, I hadn't thought of that one. This is a big deal." And between them, when I work with wealth advisors and their clients, pretty typically people will free up, a family would be able to free up a good $1,000 a month. Sometimes as high as 2,000 if they have, a second property, 2, 3 cars in the family, etc. And at the low end, I would say at least $500 a month.
You know what? There's something to be gained regardless of what sort of situation you're in. I would be sure and certain about that, Gordon. Now, when we go to your website, it would be interesting if you could share with us what exactly people are likely to find there, and what other things do you think you can do for them when they get there?
Yeah, well, there's a few things on the site, a little bit about my background and how the book came to be.
Yes, please.
The big part is probably the blog posts. So there's all kinds of ideas on there. Just, the things that I encountered that I find interesting, ways of thinking differently about money, ways of freeing up money, and experiences that I've had or that my audiences have had. So I'll feature those kinds of things in the blog posts. And the blog posts give you a little bit of a flavor of what's in the book. But the book is much more structured, more of a roadmap, more of a recipe. So that's what's there. And then there's a section on the site called ingredients, and I'm actually rebuilding all that, building it all up in more detail. And in the ingredients section, I go into detail about offerings or services or products from companies that can be helpful in this regard. So as an example, there's car insurance comparison engines that you can use to enter all of your details and find a better rate on your car insurance without having to call around. So that would be an example. Another example is, a lot of people might be paying for a gym membership, and those can be quite pricey. So one of the things I'll be featuring is, hey, how do you replicate that at home but make it fun and engaging? So just as an example, something that will be in there, I haven't put in there yet, I discovered a subscription called BitGym. And what it lets you do is you put your iPad, if you have a treadmill or a exercise bike at home, and for many people, they're holding the laundry. They don't do for work. They get bored. Who wants to sit there and pedal forever? So this BitGym, I've got it on my iPad, and I put the iPad just above the handlebars on my spin bike or exercise bike. And you can pick a country in the world, and they have these tours, and it's terrific. So you can be in Santorini and you're pedaling, and what it does is it has a sensor and it sees your head moving. If you're riding your bike, your head's kind of moving a little. It'll pick off your RPM. And the faster you ride, the faster the scenery goes by. And so you're riding through Santorini in Greece, or you're in Nepal, or you're wherever you are. In Australia, there's tours down in Australia.
Of
all
course.
these different places you can go. And I think I pay $8 a month, and so much cheaper, the gym, so much more fun. And it's a lousy rainy day outside. I get on my bike and,
And away you go.
in South America somewhere.
Yeah, wow.
So
Look, I've been looking at your website, and we're already at the pointy end of the call. It's just flown by. So much to learn from you, so much to learn from your cash flow cookbook. I guess really, most importantly, what is the name of the website, and where can people buy the book?
yeah, for sure. So my website is cashflowcookbook.com, just like it sounds.
Easy.
Um, easy. And the book is available on Amazon, best place to get it.
Yep.
And on Amazon, what you'll see is there's two different editions. There's a Canadian edition. I don't have an Australian edition, but
Ah.
both. If I'll come down, you can fly me down. And we'll do
Absolutely. The door's always open.
but I'd love that. It'd be fun. Maybe next, who knows?
Yeah, sure.
But the idea is very, very transferable. So, the probably the Canadian edition might be, the closest fit. I've got some bugs out here on the outside.
No, that's fine. You get them too.
It's fine for you. So, Canadian edition might be as good a fit, for your Australian readers.
Yep.
So there's Canadian or the US edition. They're available as either a paperback or a Kindle book. The country doesn't really matter a whole lot.
No.
The idea is it's transferable pretty much around the world, certainly in any of the
Globally, yep.
countries. And I don't know of another book that actually gets this structured, and there's no nonsense in it. These are things people can use. So jump on Amazon, grab a copy. You can get it as a Kindle edition, download it tonight, and start improving your financial future.
Well, there you go, everybody who's on the call today. If you're as excited as I am about this Cashflow Cookbook, you most certainly want to be reaching out and getting yourself a copy of it. And to learn more, visit cashflowcookbook.com. I'll be making sure that link is available to you below this post. No matter where you see the call, you're bound to be able to click back through either to Amazon to get the book or straight through to Gordon and all of his wonderful work. And with that all being said, Gordon, great call. Thank you very much for joining me on the show today.
Oh, real pleasure. Thank you so much. Great to be here, Rick.
Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed the call, then make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, share us with your friends, and book your spot on the show at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. And if you're looking for solutions that will help grow your business, then visit myfuturebusiness.com/shop.